Hola community, welcome to another episode of Blender Today Live, your weekly safe haven of the stuff happening in the world, just to focus on Blender, on open source, on the community, on good stuff, useful stuff. How about we see what's new in Blender? Today we have not so many news. So I think it's gonna be another Hangout live stream like we did last week. Remember, you can ask questions on Blender.Today on this thread made by Blender Defender. Thank you, Defender. And the chat. I'm gonna be enjoying when talking with the chat. However, if there's not so much to talk about, then we can just postpone it to next week. Although, announcement about next week, I'm not going to do a live stream next week because next week is Blender 3.1 coming out and there is so much work to do that I'd rather use the Monday to focus on the release notes and everything else around the release itself. So this week, it's okay. Next week, break, and the week after we're gonna come out with the latest and greatest news in Blender 3.2 and above. I hope there is no 3.1. Let's hope there is no Blender 3.1.1. I mean 0.1.1.1 fix release. To make sure that that happens, please report all the issues you may find this week. There's not much more time, so let's get to it. So again, not so many news. I'm going to internet cafe mode with my headphones to keep them nice and warm. And let's see, before I even move here, let me grab the news that are around Blender. We have a couple new notes. We have some grease pencil, animation, UI, it's not so much, and some announcements regarding the support of Blender and Python. So leave your questions on Blender.Today, and then let's jump immediately. So 2 new nodes have joined the geometry nodes party. What are they? Well, the most interesting one, I say, this week is by Johnny Matthew, and it's called Duplicate Elements. So an element is a spline, a vertex, a face, edge, and so on and so forth. So you can now duplicate those within geometry nodes. So in the patch description, we have there's different modes. So point for vertices, edges, faces, spline, and instances. The existing attributes are going to be propagated to the other faces, and every element is duplicated for a computer number of times. So it has an option that you can set to the number of times, and this is more or less how it looks, or at least how it was tested by Johnny, I believe. Yeah, basically it's a new node with a drop down where you can choose the type of element that you want to duplicate. So this one I think is going to come in pretty handy with well, pretty much it's a way of doing arrays, right? Kind of in an easier way. You can get each index, and then I guess the index you can set it to the offset, so then you can well, so sort of like here. It's using the normal scale and then set position. Yeah, so you could do something like that. So where are those array modifiers? Is this enough to replace the array modifier? I think at some point, maybe once 3.1 is out and 3.2 is it's a full steam, I think at some point it would be a good exercise to go to this list and say, okay, what can be replaced with geometry nodes completely? Like build, for example. It only has a few settings, right? Randomize, seed. This could just be one panel, right? It could be just the one toggle that says randomize, and then you choose the seed. Anyway, this seems pretty simple. Animate over time. Yes, the animation factor. But we have seen time now, right? Okay, who's going to be the first to make this entirely with geometry nodes? Because once those are there, as we could start thinking about presets, about how to present the presets. There are some ideas already, but I think at some point it would be cool, you know, to, okay, how is a preset? Can we set an icon to the preset, right? You need to, so it looks good in here. So it ships with Blender. It's an asset now. The 3.1 Blender 3.1 supports geometry nodes asset types, right? So they could be in the asset browser. Could this need to be replaced for an asset browser, or is it done? How does it work? Is it a built-in preset, or it's something that the community can change and adapt? You know, so many questions. But the first step, I think, would be to grab one of these modifiers and make them into edge split. It's also super simple. Edge split is it's like yes or no, and then the angle, and then sharp edges. So to set the, you can set the attribute sharp. This is even easier. So there's so many questions to, like I mentioned, how do we set the icon? How do we set the name? How are they included in Blender? So all those questions can be answered, well, should be answered in a proposal, which I think we don't have a proposal yet on how to deal with these presets. I know eventually should happen, you know, but it's a good exercise. Any product designer out there, that would be a good exercise to start with as well. Okay, the next node in here in the party is also by Johnny, I believe. Yes, it's a Boolean. It's a one simple node, has a Boolean output that tells you if the face is a planar or not, basically. What does it mean? Well, planar is when there's officially exactly plane. So you know you can have a let's just open Blender. We don't have many things to show today, so let's just open Blender and show everything. So yeah, for example, if you have this face and I do this weird thing, you know, it still has four vertices, but this happens, and this is really bad for shading unless you subdivide it internally. So sometimes you want to know if this is happening on your mesh, so you can, you know, do something about it. Change a material, change the attribute, or even subdivide it and triangulate, for example. That is the example shown by John here. It's in the output planar of yes or not. That is a Boolean. With the Boolean node, takes if it's not, then triangulate. So if it's not planar, triangulate, bam. Easy peasy. Then this weird shading then becomes its actual real faces. So for distribution, I think it's also good, right? To do this kind of stuff. Edge split is already a node. Is it? Is it though? I remember it used to be, but I don't know, sometimes edge split. No. Split? No. Split edges. Well, it's called an edge split. Oh, okay. This is okay. Done, everyone. Okay, it's over. Now you need to also have a. If you want to remake this in geometry nodes, then you also need what the set attribute. You need to set an attribute to sharp, and then what else was it? Edge split. You need to set the angle, and the node doesn't let you set the angle. So then you need a Boolean to check the angle of a face. How can you split faces but don't have an... Maybe this setting can just be added to the node itself and... right? Sounds... It could be used. Okay, time to move on. And that is all, actually. Oh, a note, a public service announcement is that you probably seen last week that I've been discussing. No discussion. I was announcing that there is all the hair stuff coming up for Blender. There is a new or improved curve types in Blender. So that is under the hood. So you're not going to see any changes. However, there's one change that happened today, just a few, like 15 minutes before starting the live stream, that the conversion started to use the new curves in geometry nodes. Nothing is going to change except, like at first, except performance will decrease temporarily until the rest of the work is done in the new type is used in more places. But functionality, yeah, there will be temporarily make performance of curves much worse. Just in case you are using Blender.Today, and then you notice, it's okay, and then tomorrow when you download the buildbot, it's gonna be slower. So just keeping that in mind. It's not you, it's Blender, but it will become better, and actually it will become faster than before. So faster than at the initially, like right now, before downloading the new build. Just a heads up about curves. Okay, changing topics into UI. There's a UI change on the way you, well, it's a feature and also improvements in splitting of windows and swapping areas between windows. That wasn't possible before. You know the shortcut where you can basically control and then drag from a corner, and then it becomes this icon that allows you to swap, and then you can swap editors. I use this all the time when I want to first make a list longer or not, or if you, I do it with animation editors usually, or like 3D, like swapping to 3D windows, especially if I have like one in render or not, then it's good to change that. Okay, well, it's not good. It's something that is handy to do it quickly. However, it wasn't possible to swap between two different windows, so you would be limited to the editors in one window. Not anymore, apparently. That has been fixed by the one and only Harley. Okay, there's 3 things here. Let's read the entire patch. We don't have too many news today. So when holding Control or Shift while dragging on the corners, the mouse cursor initially indicates that you're doing a split. That is wrong, actually, because if you're holding Shift or Control, it's a different... it should already mention if it's a split or not, a swap or not. Both swap and duplicate require much less movement threshold than split and join, since they are singular operations. It is true, you're required to... You either do it or don't. It's not like how much you can split it. So it makes sense to just show the right cursor at a time. Then, swap area that gives no cursor feedback. It used to, now it does. It shows a stop sign where it can't be swapped, like outside of the window. Makes sense? And then you can only swap areas between different windows. That's so cool. And then a note. Yes, I realize this is making improvements to operations that almost nobody uses or even realizes exist. What do you mean? I use that all the time. This does help me investigate. Oh, this is used a lot by people that maybe are not so loud online, but it is super used. Super used. Okay, next improvement in the viewport. So there is, it's an improvement to the view roll operator that now is gonna keep the orthographic view when rolling 90 degrees. So there is an operator for view roll that if you search, let's go here, view roll, then you can, basically start rolling the view in 2D. Basically, it's pretty handy. I think in Grease Pencil they have it on, or in the Grease Pencil tools add-on they use it a lot as well. But it's it's just super handy. This operator, which isn't it anywhere else? Like if I look for view roll, it's roll left, roll right, which is Shift numpad. If you numpad 4 and 6. But isn't it anywhere else? It shows me the name of the operator. So when you see the name of the operator, it's because you have developer extras, and developer extras exposes in search, exposes everything. So what you can do in here in edit operator search, this is the, basically the operator search, which is not showing here, view roll, but it shows in the F3. I think operator search might be a bit broken because it should show view roll. Maybe it only shows the... No, it also doesn't. Huh. Yeah, it's a bit broken. Menu search, view role. However, I noticed that it's missing from menus. I think it would be useful to have it, right? So that you can more easily assign a shortcut to it. So view role, and I have the extras on, off. View role. So from here you can right click, add a shortcut or change the shortcut. But I think it would be useful to have it here. Viewpoint. No, it's not a viewpoint, it's navigation. So here, roll, just roll. Anyway, sorry. Next. Speaking of the rotating 90 degrees, there is now a keymap entry for your space navigator or your 3D mouse 90-degree roll. That wasn't there before. Now it is exposed, so you can use the operator itself. And the speaking of the end of or the 3D mouse, if you have too many, have many. There is an option to toggle what I showed last week, I think. It was the view and panning that wasn't possible to pan the view in when you were using the an end of or a 3D mouse, Space Navigator. Now there is an option, and I think it's in preferences, input, yes, end of, and then here, lock, camera, pan, zoom. And what else? That it's all. I think this is gonna be a constant potpourri section. There is just the one section per one item per section, but animation, motion paths to be precise. Culling has added this feature. So use other frame range for motion paths instead of the hard-coded 1 to 250. Now you have options when you want to calculate motion paths. You can choose the selected keyframes that you have in your range, all the keyframes, the scene range, which used to be the default, but now you can choose. Yay! And that's about it. The scene range operator was removed. So if you're in the very weird case that you have an add-on that uses that operator, that has been removed, and now it's one of the options of the drop down. Okay, I mentioned curves before, and actually what I mention now, it's a bug fix. This is okay. Let's do some potpourri section, because there is one item per section. The curves important fix that happened this week is on text objects and regular curve objects. Motion blur was broken, and that was reported, and it's been fixed now. I just like to mention it because it's kind of a big deal that was broken. This is fixed in 3.1, by the way, so it should be part of the next release. So if you had motion blur issues in Eevee, especially, I think the error was Eevee, the bug report was Eevee, that should be fixed. So yay, motion blur. The next it's a teaser. Last week I also teased about this new sculpt mode in curve objects, that it's a part of what is going to be the new hair grooming tools. Well, another teaser. This tool does nothing pretty much, except has a boilerplate for developers to take on this tool and make their own. So it's temporary. I think this will go away once the real tools are out there. So what you see here, it's a proof of, it's not even a proof of concept. It's something that the developers, when you add a new tool, you have to add the tool in many places. You have to add the file for the tool, or you have to reference it in other places. So there is a lot of, not a duplication, but you need the foundations to make new tools. The same happens with nodes. Now there are a bunch of nodes as a reference, but usually you want to start somewhere. And the same with tools. So pretty exciting. They're coming. It is coming. So yeah, no notes on how this works. It's just boilerplate. Next, okay, grease pencil and line art. There is 2 grease pencil fixes and 1 line art. The one for grease pencil, simplify sample modifier improvements. So 2 things have changed. One is that it handles cyclic strokes correctly, the simplify modifier, and there is a sharp threshold value to allow preservations of corners, of sharp corners in your strokes, in your grease pencil objects. Another change that was done to the fill dilate setting. Remember last week or 2 weeks ago I showed how now you can use negative values in the dilate slider for the fill tool to allow you to either shrink it or expand outside of the boundary. So there is super cool functionality, allows you to do like outline, like cartoon outlines, or even that those drawings that are kind of then like painted quickly or so, because it goes a bit off the lines and has a very nice cartoon style to it. The other change that was done, oh yeah, sorry, by the way, this change expands outside of the stroke to keep consistency with the new contract option. Dilate now expands the shape beyond the internal closed area. The next change is for line art, consistent backface culling behavior. So 3 things. 1, it will now remove the lines if both adjacent faces are back faces. So yay for performance, I think, right? It will here Yiming added a check to respect the material backface culling setting. That's good. Respect settings. And the last one is a change in the label modifier to force backface culling, which reflects more accurately what the checkbox does. So I think the force was added. It didn't say forks, right? Yeah. That is all for the regular line art and grease pencil changes. One is a PSA. So Python, there's a new minimum version for Python. So if you compile Blender, you might... Okay, that... Oh no, Chrome is not responding. Oh no. What did I do? What am I gonna... If I close Chrome now, I'm gonna lose a bunch of stuff. So, okay, let's go full screen. So if I... when I open it again, it doesn't decide to show everything on screen. Let me open my profile. Do you use Chromium profiles? They're pretty handy. I have one for work, one for... Well, here I am only at work. So I managed to save it. Yes, let's close some tabs. I need to restart the computer. How long it's been since I restarted this computer? 34 days without restarting the computer. Maybe at some point I should. Okay. What else? Oh yeah, I was mentioning the Python version has a new minimum. So 3.10 is a new minimum, so that makes developers don't have to maintain 3.9 anymore. So yay for that. Again, I made a video last week on Friday on the add-ons that might not make it into Blender 3.1 official release because their documentation is not on Blender.org's manual yet. So if you want to help, I made a video about it. You can find it not in this channel, but in the Blender Developers channel. So if you go to Blender Developers add-on, Blender Developers only, and then here. So the last video in the Blender Developers YouTube channel mentions that these add-ons, the add-ons that I mentioned at some point, I think it's, well, Amaranth is one of them. Tiny Cat, Tissue, and Real Snow, they will be, I don't know if by the moment I make this video they already have documentation in Blender.org on the manual, but I mentioned why this would be, yeah, it affects these add-ons. I am working on the documentation of Amaranth, so hopefully this one is gonna make it to 3.1. But yeah, if you can help, it's super simple. Today it took me 2 commands to, at least on Linux, to install, to have documentation running. Next, Ghost Event System. This is very POTPOURRI section. So there is support for mapping new keys. So there is a few how to say, characters, keys that didn't have a way to be mapped into Blender. Sometimes you would press that key and it will return like unknown. So now it is known, so you can make more use of your keywords, the keys that cannot be assigned to anything. Okay, and that is all for everything that is happening in Blender Master, in the Master branch. There is one change in the XR Dev branch, the Blender VR XR experience. It's getting an improvement for people with Vive Tracker, the HTC Vive. Now you can enable selectively extensions. So what does it mean? Well, that you can pick which one. So for example, allows action bindings for the HTC Vive trackers so that their poses can be queried and used for motion capture objects. This again, it's in a branch, it's not in Blender Master. However, in the buildbot in Builder.Blender.org under branch, you're gonna find a build from yesterday, from Sunday 27th, yeah, of XR Dev. I think it's not for Mac, but it's available for Linux, for Windows, and no, it's not for Macs, but it shouldn't be too much, or maybe it is. I say it like, it's just build it for Mac, but it should be possible because it's using a library that is already in Blender. I don't think it's using anything new, or I am wrong. Currently, the extension is only supported by SteamVR Runtime 1.21, and there are a few issues, which could be on the Blender or SteamVR side. Okay, so it's for testing. That's why it's on a branch. And that is all. That is all the news that I have for this week regarding Blender. So let's talk about what is new and what are the questions in Blender.Today. Oh, I lost the chat. That's what I lost when I had to restart. Is the live stream okay? Haven't speaking to no one. Okay, I got you guys and girls. I have the chat here, so I'm gonna get to it in a moment once I finish going through these questions. So I'm gonna flip to the other side and begin with the first question. Here, there's only 9 comments, so that's okay. Hey Pablo, says X-Dragon. I hope you have a great day. I am having a great day. It's been sunny all day. I have one arm by the window, one arm, so I'm gonna be like a truck driver, only one arm, getting the force of nature. My question is, why is the end panel text vertical? Can we get an option to draw the text horizontal? The end panel text. How would you fit? I mean, it's vertical because there's no other way. If you have it horizontal, you will end up with it wouldn't fit. Yeah, that's the main reason why. We should support icons. That would be one good thing to do, and also we should prevent this from happening. These tiny things, you know. That's where effort should go. Next, hi Pablo, suggestion: an option to keep the arrow cursor visible while drawing. When you don't have a physical pen and a display tablet, having something like an arrow cursor makes it easier to use draw mode in Grease Pencil. Thanks for the streams. You mean so in Grease Pencil? So if you are in Grease Pencil and you're drawing, or you mean while pressing it? I think the cursor is here. I see a little white dot, or maybe I didn't. To keep the cursor visible while drawing. When you don't have a physical pen, having something like an arrow cursor makes it easier to use draw mode in Grease Pencil. There is a little dot. There's no arrow, but if you're using a pen, when you don't have a physical pen and display tablet. Okay, when you have a physical, well, when you have the mouse. Yeah, I think there was a patch that. I think there was a patch for that it didn't make it yet, but for being able to choose the cursors and on each, I think it was Harley that made it, that you could choose which cursor to show in which mode, and some of the arguments were that there were too many options. I disagree. I think options for that kind of stuff are good, especially if when people can configure it, because there was some discussion going on if either show or not show the like the crosshair or the, you know, the specific cursors that Blender has. Next. Are there plans to expand the asset browser's capability to include parented meshes and any stuff where there is more than one thing in it? Yes, collections, collection support. There needs to be an easy way to render the thumbnail for those collections, but yes, collections should solve all of that. Costa says, hey Pablo, not a question, just an appreciation for your quality streams. Thank you so much. That's super neat. Super nice. Heart. There you go. Next, Tim. Hey Pablo, how's your Monday going? It's pretty well, but I'm feeling the pressure of having to work on the release notes. I was reading the realistic human research on the Blender Studio website, and I noticed that the plan is to follow a similar workflow to Crane's Jones linked here. Since Chris has pretty famously produced photorealistic renders of human characters for the past decade in Blender, don't you think he would be a valuable asset to the Blender Studio for Project Heist? I'm sure his involvement would push Blender in a direction that would benefit everyone. Well, good news. Well, I don't know if this has been shared anywhere, but actually the people downstairs, I say it's the Blender Studio, it's downstairs. Downstairs here is web development or sysadmins. No, that they already had a conversation with Chris, and he's been giving feedback to the studio and helping out and sharing the yeah, like most of what you see here. Human research noticed the plan is to go follow a similar workflow than Chris. That's because he's been involved. Actually, they had a Google Meet conversation. So yeah, that's already happening. Michael, hi Pablo. I am not sure where is the right place to ask this question, but how do you know what is the path of providing CVs or ideas for the Blender grants? As I am the author of 2 open source projects regarding real-time GPU simulations. One is Smoke on Fire and the second is Liquids. And I would love to implement them into Blender. However, time is the main problem, as having a job and in university is just too much for fast development. And about my projects, for now, the Smoke sim is able to simulate and render 450 cube domain in real time, and the Liquid can do a bunch of particles in 24 FPS. To anyone interested, there is a dev talk. Well, I mean, you're already sharing this in here. I would say send an email to development coordinator, so you can email either or get in touch in the chat and maybe ask. I would say go to Blender Coders, ask there, and then you will tell you to even get in touch with Dalai Felinto's coordinator of development, and that will be a good first step. Or get in touch with Thomas Dinges, and he's gonna mention that probably same to you, and then eventually make a nice presentation. And I think the ultimate would be Ton to reach out for this. But yeah, I think you have to prove in a way that it could be done, that it would be manageable, and that it fits with Blender goals. Hi Paul, I hope you're doing great. Thank you, Faku. My question is not specific to Blender. How do you handle color spaces in the short films? I mean, the 3D renders should be filmic, but when do you do compositing, mixing renders with live action, it should be in sRGB standard. I'm confused in that. I hope you understand my question. I would say it depends on, for our short films, it's all filmic. Every short film we made is been filmic, I think even Settlers, maybe not. But yeah, everything has been in Filmic. For mixing with live action, I think it depends on where the live action footage is color space, so you match it. I would say, and where the compositing is done. Hey Pablo, can you tell me the setting to be changed here in Eevee to make the render more realistic? There is no setting to make Blender Eevee renders more realistic, but if you use PBR shaders and you use an HDR image as your backgrounds, that already is going to go a long way in making things look photoreal. And photos also, if you use photo scanning, that already helps. So PBR shaders, photo scan your textures, and a HDR image as lighting. That will help a lot. And and then use Irradiance Cache for baking the indirect lighting to bake the light and get bounces, light bounces. Okay, that is all, I think. Let's see one. Let's update. Okay, 2 more questions over here. Let's see. And what is the date for the Blender 3.1 release date? Yeah, it's 9th of March. So next week on Wednesday, ideally, if everything goes right. What is it new? So he's working on the last maybe 4 or 5 years in Blender, not 10. He's only working the last maybe 4 or 5 years. What do you mean? Oh, for Chris. I don't know what his answer is too. But I think those are all the questions. I can't see a question that I missed. Oh no, here. Are there plans for light linking or light groups inside of Blender in the near future? Yes, there are. There are patches. The light linking one hasn't been updated in a while, fortunately. But the light groups patch has been updated and you can test it in Graphic All. If you're on Windows, there is a Windows build by Bone Studio. It's called Bone Master, and it's master with Blender 3.1, not alpha, it should be beta, right? With caustics and light groups built in. It was built 5 days ago, so it should be 3.2 alpha, not 3.1, I believe. I'm gonna let Juan know about that. And that is it. There's no more questions. Let's go into the chat. So let's see. What is the date for 3.1? Wednesday, next Wednesday, hopefully. That will be okay, though having to scroll down will be really nice, I think. This was a reply to something else. How do I get the latest version? Go to Blender.org. Go to download. Go to, and then download. If that is the latest version, stable. If you want to have fun with the latest changes that are not stable yet and can mess up your files and provoke a mess on you, no. That is unstable and experimental and you shouldn't use in production, you can go down here to the section that is all red that says experimental and then click and you download any of the ones that are marked as alpha, and that will be the latest and sometimes greatest. Next question. Can you rotate the screen in the texture editor, only 3D view? You can in the text. I think you can do it in the 2D view. Have you tried it though? Like if I do view roll. So roll. There's no roll. I thought there was an add-on for a tool for that. Does anybody know if it's what? I would have been convinced that it was possible. No, operator, Control Shift, click, right? No. Huh? You know what you think there are? What you could promise over your dog now that that feature existed. It shouldn't be too hard to have it in. I mean, if it's in 3D, just remove a D. Are you an expert at Blender? I am definitely no expert, and I don't think there is such a thing as an expert at Blender, because there are so many things that even the best artist out there is gonna still lack in, I don't know, rigging tools. But even the best rigger is gonna lack on video editing. The best sculptor is gonna lack in motion tracking. Yeah, Blender is so diverse in that, yeah, it's impossible to be an expert at Blender. There is an expert on areas, in different areas, but no one, I think, it's an expert in any in entire Blender. Hey Pablo, is the Blender Studio hiring any animators? Asking for a friend. Tell your friend that the moment, no, the Blender Studio already has a how many? It's like Healthy, Rick, and Pablo Furni, that are covering like the basic animation stuff at the moment. However, for the Heist project, there might be a need to have more people on board, so stay tuned. What you can do at the moment to get things in a, you know, to show yourself out there, share on your social media your work, share on Twitter, share on animation websites like anima.to, and then you can put here your animations, so you get you can see, we can see, people can see what you are doing. It's good to show stuff. What do you do? Okay. Usually people get hired like that. It's not so much about sending a a CV. It's more like, hey, we saw this cool person on Twitter or something like that, hashtag B3D, and then we get in touch with that person. Okay, how many Pablos have worked for Blender? So many. Blender is run by Pablos. You could say. No, there's many Pablos. Pablo de Barro, Pablo Furni, Pablo Vázquez, Pablo Lizardo used to be using Blender time ago. Let's see. Some Geonos masters can't sculpt well. Yeah, there is no Blender master. There is no gurus of every area in Blender. It's just impossible to cover so much. Hey Pablo, I tried Blender in VR. It's amazing, and I wish to share more video tutorials about it. I would like to thank you for your live streams. My question is, do you see any updates coming to VR? Yes, I shared today and the last week and the previous week as well, changes in upcoming changes in the XR/dev branch. But even outside of the branch, there is already stuff. And actually, I've been mentioned in, I think on Pablo Vázquez. No, not that Vázquez, my Vázquez. That is me. And let's see, because I replied to someone here that was using the AR VR MX and mixed reality, and he was using the graph to navigate and that kind of stuff. So get in touch with these people, no ghost, and make a community of VR users. What else? How do I do solidify with geometry nodes? Is using Boolean the only way for the time being? I think. Well, no, you have extrude now, right? You can extrude stuff. So if you have you can do extrude, not shift node, extrude, mesh, bam. So this is a solidify. Poor man's solidify. What else? If I'm not Pablo, I cannot join Blender Studio. You can always change your name. Why is Monkey the mascot of Blender Foundation? It's not the mascot of Blender Foundation. It's a gift by an artist that used to work at Blender for Blender back in the days, and made this model, made it into Blender as open public domain, and yeah, now it's everywhere. Okay, what else? How much time do we have? Let's do a few more questions. Has Sculpt mode gotten a new owner we can praise like a deity? There is a developer that is working on a grant for sculpting, and there is a blog post on code.blender.org about what those updates are. So go there to find out more. How should I do modeling without stylus, pen, or tablet? You can. How should I do 3D modeling? You can do modeling without a tablet for sure. I mean, yeah, you don't need a tablet to do modeling. You don't even need a tablet to do sculpting. However, of course, it's pretty handy to have one, especially for sculpting, but for modeling, no. Look up box modeling. Or poly by poly even. You don't need... Cool, the materials list at the top of the shader editor we made broader to accommodate longer material names. Library names when linked. You mean the shading? This? So if we have a bunch of materials, this is not long enough. Like, maybe you should consider having shorter names. Let's see. I added 3 times. Well, maybe it could be this wider. Yeah. The thing is that then, well, you can click in the entire row, so it doesn't really hurt to have this wider. Yeah, definitely. Actually, this setting, this drop down, there is a setting in the code itself where you can, let's see, in the text editor. So this is node PT material slot. So this is the panel, and this is set here. BL UI units X. And so instead of 12, I do 14, or let's do something obvious, 16. I run it. Now, boom, look at that. Long. Let's do 20. Go nuts. Run. Bam. Huge. And that's how you can change the size of your panels. Any panel, any popover. The PT stands for panel type, and popovers, well, these kind of drop downs are popovers. They're just like a panel, like a fake kind of panel, but it uses a similar syntax where you can set the width, the units in width. Okay, let's do 5 more questions. Any updates on Sculpt Dev? I did. Is Studio hiring animators? I'm looking at the oranges one. You can enable the cursor in the toolbar. It's hard to spot questions here. Is there Symmetry Blender geometry now? No, not that I know. But Symmetry for what? Because you could, in a way, set the position, invert, and then set it on the other side. I am brain farting here, by the way. I'm just thinking out loud. So maybe it's not even possible. GLTF free for Metaverse? What? Omniverse NVIDIA? Yes, what about the Omniverse? Hey Pablo, can you tell me setting to be... No, I already mentioned. If I buy a GeoNodes freezer generator, I would like to assign to asset browser a freeze generator, and then be able to just drag the icon to an object and it works. GeoNodes freeze generator. Freeze what? Anyway. Why do you want to replace modifiers? Replace these modifiers? Well, so they can be more powerful. These ones, so people can have their own, because the geometry nodes modifier, it's just, it could expose. All these modifiers could be using geometry nodes and be extended. So when people are asking, why don't we have an array, a circular array setting? It would be so simple to do it with geometry nodes and add it here. That's their benefits. And updating it and sharing it. If the system for presets here works well enough for Blender to use it. Imagine when you can go to a website or to the market, whatever, and download your own modifiers so that you can add to your list and you have a massive list of your own custom modifiers. That's super cool. This list here is not flexible at the moment. It's hard. It's part of Blender's code. You need to compile every time. So if you could have your own custom modifiers, that's pretty neat. And since 3.1 and 3.2 allows geometry nodes as assets, we only need to add assets here. So it's not too far fetch. Okay, people, let's go into, let's say goodbye. What do you think about the Ukraine and Russian war? What everybody thinks, that war is stupid. We should be worried at the moment with other things, like maybe the planet is on fire. Maybe we're gonna... Yeah, no, let's not even talk about it. It's just so stupid. War is so stupid. No one wins. It should be a one hand on hand on people that actually want to do it. Anyway, completely off topic. Let's not talk about that. It's Blender today. Let's talk about Blender, open source, community, fun stuff. Let's meet again. However, next week is gonna be super busy with the release of Blender 3.1. It is happening. I hope. I don't think any... I haven't seen like big, like major bugs like need to be fixed, or like high priority bugs still need to be fixed. However, remember, please report any issues. Do not wait. It's like, no, I'm gonna wait, maybe someone else will report it. Just go and report it. If it's already been reported, it's gonna be closed. Maybe check before reporting, but yeah, please do. I see a lot of comments online. It's like, oh, I downloaded 3.1, but it crashed when I did this thing, so I'm gonna download it when it comes out. No, that's not the attitude. You should go and report the issue, because that's how you make sure that it will work once the final release is out. Otherwise, yeah, the crashier the Blender release is, then it needs a fixed release that takes time from everyone, from you, because you have to download the new version, or developers that have to even, do all entire orchestration that goes behind a Blender release. So let's meet not next week, but the week after on the already it's gonna be 14th of March. So tomorrow is the beginning of March. Next Blender Today is gonna be mid-March, 14th of March. Let's meet here, hopefully with a better world behind us. Watch your ear holes, because I think last week it was a bit loud. We'll see how it goes this week. 3, 2, 1. Ow. Ow, 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 ow. Yes, sorry about that. See you next week. No, the week after. Same place, same time. Another Blender Today live. Ciao.